Okay, so today I'm very excited to talk to somebody who I've been trying to get engaged for a while, and finally our timing kind of synced up right. His name's Markus Scholz, and he is one of the founders of the label Modularfield. I've been a fan for a while. They've been around for a bit, and we're going to talk a little bit to Markus about the label and about the process of running a label, but also of artist relationships and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to have this chat. So with that, I'm going to say hello to Markus. Hey, Markus, how are you?
Hello, thanks for having me on a lovely Sunday on Easter.
Yes, happy Easter to everyone. That's a good point. It'll be just a week later, but it'll be interesting for people to know that we enjoyed the holiday together. So that's great. So Markus, let's start off by people who aren't familiar with Modularfield, or if they are and are curious a little bit about the background. Can you tell us a little bit about the label Modularfield?
Of course, yeah. Modularfield was started. I had to look it up by myself because I'm bad at dates, and I was a little bit not shocked or something like that. But around like 2014, with the first single release on vinyl. But the history goes way back. Before that, I had another label running. It was also by the name of Modularfield, but it was purely a net label. At this time and age, it was very trendy to have a net label around, and people could download the music for free and enjoying, that we're giving away the art. But that was at some point of time, it didn't play it out. There was a nice idea of giving music away for free, just in the promotion of the artist. But people didn't get it. They thought, oh, it's free music. It's not a real label. It must be garbage in some way. And I felt like that the people don't get it. So I stopped totally. And around that time, many other net labels must thought the same thing, and they also stopped. And then I made a creative break around 1 year. Besides that, I was running also a vinyl-only techno label, but that was the other end of the line, from the giving away music for free to just releasing music purely on vinyl. It was just like day and night. And I thought, that's not the way I want to handle music, so I stopped for a year, trying to think about what do I want to achieve, what do I want to present the label. Then I start around 2014 with the first 10-inch vinyl. It was pure white vinyl with hand-printed silkscreen cover, and the idea was to present timeless music, timeless electronic music, some sort of music you can listen today and you can put on 10 years from now, and not being ashamed that somebody produced this or that you're listening to. It's not like a 90s Eurodance where at the moment it was like, I really enjoyed that stuff. And 5 years later, oh my God, I was listening to Eurodance. No, timeless electronic music. That was the idea behind it. And started all around 2014 with the first vinyl single releases. I would say.
What was your first release?
The first release was from an artist called Death Trap, and it was like a mixture between contemporary interpretation of krautrock, the same stuff. Like there was one nice review where a guy described it like that: a child who never had heard from krautrock or something like that goes into a record shop and stumbles upon that krautrock release from that area and hears it and tries to reinterpret that stuff with the music he's listening at the moment. And that was just like the first release. And it was also a funny story that like the cover was silkscreen printed, and at that point we printed it in my old apartment. Well, I don't know, it was not very big, but at the end of the day the whole apartment was flooded just with the covers laying around to dry. And that was not just only this evening. I had to stay like to the next day, so I tippled around one whole day, not trying to step onto a cover. And so that was the first release. And we also tried to, but at that time I was alone. I also tried to make it right from the beginning. Also, I was searching the whole time for a right distributor, because I didn't want to just produce music and have it laying around onto my desk so it doesn't wiggle around. I wanted to get it out into the world. And so we teamed up with Rough Trade Distribution for several reasons, because they can bring it to Japan and I don't need to handle it. That was also a strong idea and foundation of the label. Make it right from the beginning. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, it's interesting because some of those things really come through in my interaction with the label. I mean, first of all, the timelessness of the music. Some of the stuff I go back to. I'm a very big fan of the Ann Annie releases, the 2 Atmosphere releases. I think those are beautiful releases. But that was how I got started with Modularfield. But then I just started kind of dancing around different releases, and the Reverbal Sign release called Silent Fog has become like one of my favorite, just hang around the house and listen in the background music. I think it's gorgeous. And until you said that, I actually had to go back online because I wouldn't have been able to peg when it was released. And I see it was a 2015 release.
Yeah.
I would say that it could have been released yesterday and would have been perfectly in line with where things, what's listenable, what's an enjoyable release. And I think that that's actually something that really is a great identity to have, because you're not going to get shuffled off after 6 months when nobody wants to hear your particular version of trap, dub, space rock.
Yeah, that was also the nobody needs another, I don't want to sound mean, another tech house label in any way. There are great people doing a great job with just one kind of genre. Maybe that's another point of the whole idea. We have so much different genres presenting, not only like, for example, Ann Annie, it's more like the ambient soundscape stuff like that. What you mentioned, Reverbal Sign, is more like analog techno, electro in some sort. And also see when you go to Sky, and more cinematic sound, shogori, handmade electronic music, or the latest one released like Studio Rauschenberg is just like plain techno-electro stuff. It's just like the mixture of the genres. That is also the intention for the name Modularfield, like to present a modular field of music. It was not just like nowadays everybody asks, because you're releasing modular releases. That was never the intention of the name. At the point where we created that name, I never was aware of the modular soundscape at the moment. So it's just like bringing a right spectrum, good timeless electronic music, and covering it with an artwork that not only fits the music, some sort of gives the label a whole identity. So when you go and see an artwork, that could be a Modularfield release. I'm interested. What's behind that stuff?
You bring up a couple of good points there. First of all, having modular in the name might be a little surprising to do that, and then if they happen to like first listen to the Palm House release, the Amparo release, which is like got a lot of guitar playing in it, right? It'd be like, hey, where's the modular synth, right? And but it does seem to sort of like surpass the instrumentation, which again I think is going to help it kind of have a timelessness to it. But the other thing is this visual identity that you've given it. It's really amazing, and it's clear that it developed over time to where now you have kind of this square framing with beautiful artwork that sort of like wraps around it. It's really a clear visual identity, but if you listen to the music, even though there's a wide variety of music, it also seems to kind of have an imprint of a particular of kind of a centralized sound as well.
Yeah, because I guess the centralized sound becomes, maybe that's why Stefan and I curating it. we have a clear sound, not a clear sound version, I don't know. Besides all that electronic stuff in my, I will call it free time, I just listening to rap music. I'm listening to the total opposite what I'm releasing. And I guess we have some sort of, maybe let's call it a feeling for the electronic music, what we trying to connect between each artist. I guess, yeah, there's a certain vibe, I would describe it, floating around all that stuff. It's different, but on the other hand, of some sort, not different. I don't get the word at the moment, but maybe you know what I mean. So
yeah, there's a variety, but it still seems like it's part of a family. It's really an interesting combination, and I would emphasize to the listeners, go to the Bandcamp page and check out some of the variety of work. So Markus, I'm a little curious. You have what sounds like a pretty remarkable career of playing with music and being involved in different kind of label type functions. Can you tell me a little bit about your background? Do you have a musical background? Do you have a DJing background? How did you get into music? And what are the things that propelled you into becoming a label runner?
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit of a long story, but I will try to maybe
a long story is fun.
Okay. We're going way back in time. No, first I never learned to play an instrument and stuff like that. My father, he's playing the guitar and he sings in a band and stuff like that. But I have never learned to play an instrument because I guess I was never into it, to learn the piano or read notes. I hate notes. I hate also math. Maybe some the both sides. It's not appealing to me to do it like that, or sitting down studying a long time. But then a friend of mine introduced me into making music with the computer. At this point of time, it was like Reason 1.0 was just arriving on the market, and he said, look at this, it's just a sound studio on your computer. And I was, wow, we can patch cables, you can do stuff, let me get into it. And so I started really getting into it, making electronic music without knowing anything about electronic music at that point of time, just except listening to it. From this habit, and also with the first reason, the internet, that sounds like it's way back in the past, but at the same point, broadband internet came up, and also all the new forums and like music pages. And there was a German page called My Own Music, where you can put up music. I guess it's not around anymore. And people can rate it, give you tips, and it was a really positive vibe. And I started to putting music out there, and it was really well received. And at the same time, MySpace started, and everybody was uploading there. Then I met a guy on this music forum named of Taschenrechner Musikant. It's like the calculator musician in English translation. And I was really into his music, and I found it a little bit of sad that it's only really represented on that particular music platform. So I tried to figure out how I can publish stuff. And I had no idea, no how that all works, where you can, at that time of time, there was not even, I don't know, the big way you can buy electronic music was a Beatport or something like that. And nobody was buying at iTunes, and nobody had a rough idea what Spotify is or something, because it wasn't there. And so I tried to figure it out. Yeah, maybe I can do a net label, because that I saw on the internet was very exciting about it, because I was so much around in the messaging boards and stuff like that. Yeah, maybe why not found a net label to bring it out? And then it was the first thing like, yeah, but it also needs a cover. Who can do the cover? I can do the cover. So I was slightly into graphic design also at the time. And I don't know with what program I made it with. I guess some sort of first Photoshop. So I started really in the beginning also making the graphic, getting the music, talking with the artist, and then putting it out. And that was the first net label stuff. And then was putting out, and it was downloaded 10,000 times at this point of it. It was like, wow, people are really interested in the stuff. And I put it more releases, and it grows. and yeah, maybe I should do some press work, because also today nobody has really get gist of it, how it really works. Even the people in the pro or the major label industry, they have barely an idea how to put or promote music, because they think it's right at the moment, but nobody figured it out how to do it really right. So it's just like from the beginning, from the first time putting out a release on a net label to today, something on a record. It's learning by doing all the time, figuring out new stuff, because there comes a need up for, maybe I think, yeah, we need something more press related stuff. We need to do, I don't know, even to do shrink warping around the vinyls to get it somewhere and stuff like. It's just figuring out, and I guess that's also my nature. I love to figure out things, and I love to figure out how to put out music. That's how I came, or that's how it all started. And we're still in the process of learning how to do things. And that is the most interesting thing about everything, I would say.
Well, I think that is a great point, because when you look at like the traditional labels and even the indie labels that came after, they still are really based off of an old model of music releasing. And it seems I would say that your work with Modularfield is always pushing the envelope. So you were one of the I would say you were one of the earlier labels of the modern labels to sort of start reintroducing cassettes as one of your release formats.
Yep.
And you've always had vinyl be a part of the mix, probably going back to your techno vinyl days. But now I noticed that also, too, you have started a Patreon page where people can become subscribers. And that is a very new world for labels as well.
Yes, absolutely. Because we started before the Patreon stuff. Bandcamp is offering a similar service where you can also subscribe, but I guess it's a little bit half-assed, baked together to just present a feature on their page. We started with that, and because beside my musical stuff, I'm also a huge YouTube nerd. I'm subscribed to so many tech channels and other stuff because I'm curious. Maybe it's a mix in with all that curious, learning new things and stuff like that. And around the YouTube stuff, it's like around for years to have a Patreon page and giving maybe early access to videos and stuff like that. And I thought, yeah, maybe it's a nice idea to, on the one side, get more engaged with the audience, because when people paying that money, they are some sort of more engaged, they are more interested. And also it's a new way to offer not exclusive stuff, but stuff that doesn't fit into a release or something like that. On Patreon, it's more easy to, like the last track we have from Max, he was like, yeah, I got that track, it doesn't fit into any release, but it's too, maybe you can do something with it. Maybe give it to the Patreons. I said, yeah, it's a great idea. Let's give it to the Patreons. Same thing with Nathan's stuff. And also going back to the cassette, it was also at the time, it was, of course, reintroducing, and it was also some sort of putting music out more fast, a little bit more cheap. And because at that point of time, everybody and his mother was like, oh, we are now producing vinyls. And all the pressing plans was like, yeah, we can't do your vinyl. We have to, I don't know, refactor. We need to factor the 10th anniversary Madonna release with 10,000 of copies, and we don't have time to do your 300 vinyl runs. A waiting period of, I don't know, 6 months from the finished masters to the vinyl, and then it's not out in the world. And so I was looking into, the whole tape stuff. And it was just, right, I can just buy tapes, duplicate them, and put them out. And like what you pointed out, at this time, a few other labels were doing it, but I was in the advantage to going to eBay, typing in cassette duplicator, and I bought for 100 euros, including shipping, is just like two old school Otari tape dubbers where you can put in tape, and it makes a duplicate in 50 times speed, A and B sides simultaneously, 127, and I dump out 50 tapes in half an hour. And at the moment, when you're looking, if you even find one, they are now ranging around 1,500 euros, the 10 times of the price, because everybody is doing it. And I think we at the moment a little bit of a peak of the tape stuff, but in the is so much more to explore. I guess nobody is also buying tape because it's such a great sounding audiophile format. It's more like to collecting something. Maybe people are upset with just getting on Spotify listening, and in the end of the day, yeah, you're holding your phone. No, you're buying something, you're opening a package, you can rattle it, it makes sound, you can feel it, and you can also put it into your collection and see, oh, and when you come back one morning with your coffee in your hand, oh, I love to listening to that thing. I don't know that you have the same stuff when you brought, oh, I want to listening to that playlist. I listen to something like that. To have also a physical side of the things. And it's such a lovely format to design covers for and make the artwork for the tape and doing all the photos with the flowers and stuff.
It's interesting because I was going to say that I suspect that one of the fun things about doing cassette releases is that it gives you another format to do graphic design. Because as you say, there's something really enjoyable about opening a package and getting a musical release, but there's also something that there's no way that a playlist in Spotify is ever going to inspire you the way that a vinyl album cover or a cassette label cover is going to inspire you to say, I'm going to get into this music right now and like embrace it, right? There's something about the physicality of it, of the artwork as well as the music. There's something about the physicality of it that just, I find it really inspiring.
I guess it's also the circumstances you're listening to, maybe vinyl or cassette. At that time, you're taking yourself a little bit of time to enjoying something because you need to grab something out of the shelf. You need to open up your record player, you need to put it on, maybe sit down, listening to it. While I don't want to hate on Spotify or stuff. That's not the point. It's more like, while Spotify releases or something like the playlist business running is just like people listening doing the work. Maybe as a place when they're doing programming stuff, graphic stuff, or just like when they vacuuming their place or something. While for a cassette or vinyl, you need to take the time to enjoy the music. And nowadays, it's just like taking time for something is a really, I would say, not luxurious moment, but it's rare. It's rare.
It's a rarity. One of the few things I actually miss about smoking was the fact that having a cigarette was a reason to say, I'm going to give myself a break, right? Even if it was a short one, it was like giving myself permission to relax. And I feel like a cassette or, particularly vinyl because of the short sides and stuff, it's very much like I can't walk the dog while I'm listening to the vinyl. I can't, I don't want to get deep into coding because I'm going to need to get up and flip over the album or whatever. It draws you into giving yourself permission to have this rare time of relaxation.
Yeah, just like you will be getting funny looks when you just like maybe standing up from work, just doing nothing, walking around. Oh no, he's going to smoke. It's okay. He's just taking a break or something like that. Yeah, and it's the same with vinyl. I have no particular opinion about if vinyl sounds better than, I don't know, MP, maybe also because but on the other hand, tape sounds like, if you don't have the proper Dolby B tape deck playing, it also sounds like shit. Most part where vinyl sounds better because you get hooked your record player up to a proper stereo. That's why it sounds better. And you're not playing it to a Bluetooth speaker. And yeah, but it's the moment to enjoy the stuff. And also it's all the work that flows into also making a tape, making a physical release, because sitting down and also that doesn't get me in the wrong light or something like that. I don't hating on the digital side of that. I just like showing up my thinkings about I think everything can coexist between each other, but I like some stuff more, some stuff not so. It's also coming up with the artwork. A digital artwork is squeezed down to the size of a thumbnail. It's literally a thumbnail, so it's also called like that. Then you have the vinyl cover. You need to think in other dimensions, just to like I did on the last Shoguri LP and the latest Science vinyl. When you put the back side of one vinyl and the front side of another together, you have one big picture. That's what's fascinating about the whole medium, besides that it's a plastic disc playing with analog signals. And it's, I don't know. It's just fascinating and very satisfying to put out like that format.
Yeah, well, I also think that as as the person running the label, it makes you be a lot more thoughtful about what you're going to release, because now you're going to be committing a lot of your time and a lot of physical energy to make the release. I mean, the process of going through and literally humping boxes of records around, or at the very least, handling the ones that Rough Trade doesn't move for you, right? Physically making, I mean, you're physically making the cassettes, and so there's a very specific kind of physical interaction with those releases. I mean, it has to change the way that you feel about the music yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Because when you're doing roughly, sometimes when it's like limited tapes runs, like 50 pieces of tapes. And when I order the covers, I don't order them pre-folded. I get just plain covers, and you can be sure if you order a tape and get it to your doorstep, I at least touch that thing 5 to 10 times to make it what it is. So I'm folding the covers, I'm cutting it, I'm putting it in, I'm putting the music onto the tape, and I'm putting it into a bag, and I'm printing out a post-stamp and putting it on it and sending it to you. So it's just also an intimate process nobody is actually aware of, I would say. Nobody is thinking, oh yeah, and he's sitting evening for evening. No, but it's just also for me, it's really relaxing to put 50 covers together. Sometimes it's like jail work, like gluing paperbacks together, something like that. But on the other hand, it's also taking time for me. Like listening to a record, I'm taking time for me, and also not for me only, so also for the audience, to preparing the tape releases, also to making the most fun part, I would say, when somebody would ask me about the fun stuff about the label, besides doing the artwork and stuff, doing the photos for the tapes. It's just like, also if you're interested, you can look it up on Bandcamp. When there's a tape release, there are 5 to 6 photos, and they are all decorated with flowers. I go out by myself into a flower shop, handpick the flowers for the cover photo, buy them, going home, setting them up, cutting them, arranging them, and making photos. And it's such a relaxing process. It's not that it's not appreciated, but maybe I do it just for myself, to calm down. Besides my daily jobs, it's just like going to a flower shop, picking flowers and making photos. But for me, it's one of the most relaxing parts about the label. Yeah.
But I think that that's kind of an interesting thing about the Modularfield label, is that it kind of has your DNA woven throughout it. I mean, it's interesting to think of, like, when I get a cassette, you know, you will have folded it while you were probably listening to another record and enjoying a relaxing evening, but also that you had gone out and made a flower arrangement that became part of the artwork. And these kinds of things, I mean, that again, it sort of like makes it so it's not a generic label. It is a label run by people. And I would assume that, you know, for you and Stefan, it has to be sort of a great feeling to know that people are embracing not only the music that you're putting out, but kind of embracing you and your vision as well.
Yes, this is always appreciated, but on the other hand, there's also no, I would say, physical or presence of the both of us. When you look into the label, you maybe see on the imprint page, okay, that are the both names, but That's why I also a little bit hesitated about the interview, because often I think it's not that interesting what I have to tell, because I want to work more on the background with the label and more let the artist speak for itself. Because our focus is more the music and the artwork side. And in the end, it doesn't matter if I'm sitting there or somebody really different, because I think people should enjoy the music and the whole staff and maybe the artist. And it's not like I'm running that label because I want to represent myself. Oh, that is the guy with the label and stuff like that. That's not me. I love to work in the background, and I love to also sometimes to my very closest friends, what you are actually doing there in your free time. What the heck are you up to? I'm just releasing music. Because I'm not bragging about it. I guess it's a really healthy part also to run a label, not brag about that you are running a label, just run it.
Yeah, well, that explains, because we have been talking for like over a year, that I've been trying to get you to have a discussion with me, and you always seemed very resistant to having the discussion. And I didn't understand exactly why, but that tells me why, because you want it to be about the music and not about you. And I think that's a pretty powerful statement. But conversely, the people that are going to be listening to this podcast are going to be interested in things about either they might have imaginings of also trying to run a label, or they might like to be interested in having maybe you release stuff. And in either of those cases, the idea of it's about the music, not about me, is kind of an important part of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I don't want to have in the end of the day, I don't want to have my face on a billboard. Oh, that's a guy running. But yeah, I guess on the other hand, like you said, maybe you notice I love to talk about the little things and maybe give some inspiration when it comes to releasing music. But like I said before, even I don't know what's the golden rule or the best way to go to release music. I guess it's just like go with the flow. See what stuff comes and how do you need to react. There is no golden rule. Of course, nowadays everybody thinks that now we're hating back on Spotify, to have something in the playlist of another artist and bothering that artist around. Hey, can you put my track into the playlist so I get the heavy rotation? Yeah, but in the end of the day, how substantial is that stuff like that? Or people are getting really, I would say it's also a modern thing or a modern phenomenon that people are getting impatient about the time when it comes to produce music, to the time that I just hate that word, but when it hits the market. And there's a lot of to prepare and a lot of going through. And yeah, I guess you didn't ask me, but what my advice is to somebody else who want to run a label is first, don't do it. And the second, take your time and explore and having fun with it, because don't expect that it will pay your bills on
Right.
the other end.
Right.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting, because talking about like trying to find the rule that's going to give you success, it seems to me like everybody that tries chasing the rule always finds themselves 6 months too late, because by the time you hear about the rule, it's already done.
And then there are people out there doing it even better than you, and then the market is saturated. And that's the guy that's doing all this stuff like the other does. Yeah. No, be innovative. Yeah, I guess cut some corners and do something really stupid, like, I don't know, really, maybe the next big thing is releasing music on VHS tapes. Or one funny thing that it's a really great format for audio, because the magnet band is so big that you can achieve a really nice and crystal clear sounding audio recording on a VHS tape. But nobody wants to dub VHS tapes, and I can think of somebody who has a VHS player around anymore.
Right. Although I'll tell you, I just saw something on social media somewhere where somebody just did a release on a Sega Genesis cartridge. So talk about having trouble finding a place to play it.
Yeah.
Yikes. But one of the things I'm curious about, are you still releasing stuff on vinyl?
Yeah, we are actually in the process of releasing stuff on vinyl, but it takes its time. And I think because of the timelessness of the music, it's if it comes out this month or from now in 4 months or something like, doesn't matter. There will be something on vinyl, but it's more than the tape stuff. It takes its time, and you want to do it right. You don't want to rush it, and it's just like, yeah, we will do. We have some interesting stuff in our pipeline, I would
Okay.
say.
All right. Well, the reason I asked is because for a while you were doing techno vinyls, and then all of a sudden, like you said, you ran head first into this thing where it's like, well, Madonna decided she needed to do vinyl, so everybody else has to wait. Has that relieved itself at all, or is it still as big of a problem?
Not at all. It's still a time of big of a problem. I guess vinyl has in the last 2 to 3 years the first grow since the 80s in selling stuff like that. But it's a natural thing. There were so many record plants closing down because nobody wants to produce vinyl anymore. And there's a really few I know from here, at least in Europe. You got a big one in the Netherlands. Then in France, you got some big one. I'm not an expert at all in it stuff. You got some in the UK running on a big scale. Like you can go there and say, I want to have 100,000 records, please. And they will do it. And yeah, because of that, they will shift in your release back because U2 is planning his new album also as a vinyl.
Yeah, or they're going to do yet another release of Dark Side of the Moon or something, right?
Exactly. Then Beatles all of a sudden need a re-release of their. If there is not, there's a shortage of Beatle records out there at the moment. And yeah, it's the same. And also for small labels, sometimes it's really expensive to press like a small amount of records because also the big labels are struggling. Back in the days, it was like for the big electronic labels, was like pushing around 5,000 units of a vinyl techno EP, no problem at all. Before I would say the digital age. Nowadays, it's rough to do 500 to 1,000. And so you are not a major player anymore with ordering 5,000 records. And so you need to have to wait 6 months, maybe 6 months, maybe 4 months. We are luckily because we're doing vinyl since 2014, because before the big run to vinyl, we have some sort of contracts that we can produce small record runs. And it's a huge problem, I would say, because it's the time to market is so long that you maybe when the test pressings arrive, you totally forgot what is actually on the record.
Right.
And I would consider it not as a big problem because I guess vinyl should be a thought out format that is really some nice music on it and not some hot garbage. But yeah, I guess it translates in every part of the life. If you're a small player, you have to wait.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, in a way, it's too bad, but maybe what that means is that when inevitably Madonna decides that she doesn't want vinyl anymore and people realize they have enough Beatle records, that all these plants won't go sideways again and we'll have, an infrastructure that can support itself.
Yeah, I guess so. Also, new plants are opening up, and I guess it was also on time I read about an article. There's a new, I guess at the moment, I just pulling that out of my head the numbers, but I guess roughly around 7 people needed to operate a record press at the moment from the whole pressing standpoint, and they are developing or have ready to market record press where that work only one person can do with the double of the amount of output because there was no innovation since the 70s on there are old, smelly, loud, mechanical working things, and nobody thought about the modern technique to put into. But at the moment, they're going to have alternative ways to, I guess, make the production more lean and also making is much more affordable when it comes down to unit prices. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I would imagine that just, applying some modern robotics and testing and stuff like that could really speed up the process or at least reduce the number of people because it is expensive to do small runs. So I I would get beat up by the listeners if I didn't ask you a little bit about your curation process.
Yeah.
If somebody falls in love with your label and decides that you're the perfect mechanism for which they could release their music, how do they get your attention? And what is your process for deciding on musicians that you will work with?
With everything in life, it depends. No.
Oh boy, you skated right out of that.
We have a demo contact formula on our website where I ask the people just not like sending a links, but first of all, make yourself aware what we are releasing. Maybe when it's not that much, we don't release experimental music. We have some of that, but I personally think that's not so enjoyable to have a 15 minutes drone layered carpet of sound, because it's good music on the other side, but nothing I would release. On the other hand, it just must be timeless. And yeah, it also depends on the people behind the music. That's a very important part of it. We are running the label beside our daily jobs. And if you, like Stefan said, if you make your free time active, it at least should be enjoyable. The most part is just maybe the typical process. Somebody sending in a demo to the contact form. I'm skipping through it, listening to it. Oh, it's really interesting stuff. The first thing I would do is typically set up a Skype call with face to face and try to know that person and figure out the person behind the music, because I need to work with him. And if that not feels right for me, your music could be the next Madonna. And we don't, just doesn't feel right, because I spent a huge 90% of my free time running the label, and I don't want to, when we come back to the square, I don't want to run with assholes. Besides it, only because of the music, it's really nice to hear, nice to listen, and we have, I think it's a huge success. No, it can be the successful music of all time. If the guy is an asshole or a girl, go somewhere else. I guess it's one part is the music, the other part is the personality of the person who's making the music. I guess it's sometimes it's the most important part is the person behind the music. Yeah,
I think that's actually interesting, because again, it points to the sort of like your personal imprint on the label. If you're a bigger label, then you don't care what kind of asshole is on the other side of the vinyl. As long as it's going to sell, you're happy. In this case, it's more of you, an expression of the things that you love and the people that you want to spend time with. So that becomes a lot bigger part of your decision-making process.
Absolutely, because it's nothing annoying to just like, I guess we are also in the comfortable place or something like that we don't need to hound trends. I have we love to have the self-sustaining label, that is clear, but the rent pays my daytime job so we don't need to hound down trends. We can take our time to do stuff, but on the other hand, it's not a hobby-driven stuff like that. We do everything what we do with precision and very professional, I would say. We make professional press work. It's just like what you would expect from a major label on a smaller scale. Besides that, it's not my daytime job, and I don't want to make compromises on the steps to release them, because I want to give also the artist care. In the end, my ideal process is the artist shouldn't just care about making music, not what it's like to have it to write a press release, to do the artwork, to do this and that and stuff like that. We will take care of it because I love to do it. And yeah.
Do you ever pursue artists, or do you mostly respond to artists that are searching out you? Because you have a really wide array of artists. I'm just wondering, are these like people that just randomly ran into you, or that you met like maybe in festivals, or you saw in performance, or how did you gather the people that are currently on the label?
it depends. Sometimes also it's all started off with the first record. It was a very close friend of mine who I asked who I thought he will make the right music for that project, and I asked him if he would, for that purpose, produce a record. And the other stuff was just like, I don't know, I don't approach that much artists. Maybe it comes also from the net label stuff, from the connections to artists. Some sending in demos, and some of that like Shoguri, two guys from Düsseldorf, a friend of mine who we were working with at the time. He told me, yeah, I have two friends, they're making music, maybe you should meet each other. Yeah, and since I was then, we released two LPs with them, and also personal connection from other artists. Like one guy said, yeah, you need to check out this guy, and yeah, let's give it a try, let's see what's up there. But also on the classical way that people send in demos, it's just a fluid process, and we also are trying to engage the process between the artists, so that's not just like feeling, oh, that's this one isolated artist. Most of our artists are very supportive between each other when it comes to, I don't know, reposting stuff or getting each other in contact, doing music together or something like that. And also we're also trying to enforce this stuff. We have next month we have, for example, to a local music festival, we have some sort of showcase, and we were able to invite 50 different artists also from Berlin, London, and stuff like that to meet each other on a place. And I'm really curious when these people for the first time met each other in person and what comes up after that event. So it's more like a friendly environment, and also, yeah, it's not business driven. It's just like friendly to create something unique, music-wise and also relation-wise.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And again, probably leads to sort of this thing where even if it's a diverse kinds of music, they all have kind of a similarity to it because there's sort of like personalities that are in alignment too. Yeah. So our time is just about up, but before we go, what prompted me to reach out to you again this most recent time was that you have a new release that's about to drop from An On Bast, right?
Yes.
I was a big fan of her Summer Camp Experiment release, and you've got something new coming out. What other stuff is about to hit release?
Yeah, we have the one LP coming from Anna, and then we have also from Marta coming up in the LP, from Panic Girl, also on vinyl. Then we have, just pulling it out of my head, I have no release plan in front of me. Then we have a thing that's really long overdue, and I'd love to finally share it or that it's out. We have coming up a split tape between HHNOI and Nathan Moody. And also a reissue of the so-called Japanese reissue, because there are two bonus tracks of the Lucid Grain tape. And also there we have a new LP from Lucid Grain. Then we have a LP from Emicom, and lots of new stuff. We have it in the pipeline at the moment, and we are in the finalizing process. But keep your eyes and ears peeled to what we are coming story for. It feels like a commercial plug. We have some pleasant music coming around in the next couple of months.
Well, I'm looking forward to this dual release with HHNOI and Nathan Moody, because I think that's going to be a pretty dynamite combination. Those two people whose music will I think mesh really well. So that's a really neat combination.
I was lucky to meet Nathan in person of the concert we organized, where he and Markus HHNOI played here in Cologne. He was a really nice guy. And I'm also looking forward to it. The concept behind is Nathan put it out a sampling library, some sort of that. And he produced the music with that library on the A side. And Markus also produced the samples, the music with the same samples, and came up with something completely different. And yeah, and it's a split tape, and also it's already mastered. The artwork is done. We're just looking for the right date to release it.
Well, that sounds fantastic. Well, Marcus, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have the chat. Again, I would suggest anybody who wants to check out what you want to do, you have it's modularfield.io, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, head over there, take a peek. They have a Bandcamp where you can order stuff. Rough Trade is distributing them all over the world, so your local record shop is bound to be either have something or be able to get it for you. Also, sounds like you can order tapes right from Marcus's living room if you want. So
Exactly.
that's always an option. But with that, I am going to let you have the rest of your Easter. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you for having me. It was a really pleasure, and maybe also a starting point for me to reach out more into the real world and talking about what I'm doing. Thank
There
you for
go.
the
All right. Yeah, thank you. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Goodbye.
All right, coming for you through the Tunnel City Coffee in North Adams, Massachusetts, where we're wrapping up the Expo 74. If I saw you here, great seeing you. If I didn't, maybe next time. But I want to wrap this up to close out the door, so thanks a lot for listening. Catch you next time.